welcome everyone to the Alteryx Designer Cloud Data Engineering webinar. My name is Cesar, and I am part of the training and enablement team at Data Meaning. And I have been working with business intelligence for about 6 years now, mainly with Alteryx, Click, and Microsoft solutions such as Power BI and Excel. And I'm very glad to introduce you today to Alteryx Designer Cloud. First, a little bit about Data Meaning. So very fast on this. We are a boutique business intelligence consultancy founded in 2005. We are in Florida, DC, New Jersey, Chicago, India, Brazil, and along with our software partners, we provide end-to-end solutions in creative services, BI, data management, change management, and delivery management. We can also assist you on education and training, and that's it. So let's begin with the session. Alteryx Designer Cloud Data Engineering. Today, the focus is to answer these basic starting questions. So what is Alteryx Designer Cloud? Why use it? We're going to see how does it work. And then after that, we'll log in and see it in action with a simple demonstration with the census dataset. So feel free to send any questions in the chat during the presentation. And we're going to start with the simple question, what is Alteryx Designer Cloud? So first is an AWS native platform for data wrangling, which means data preparation, meaning that its architecture and technology are designed, constructed, and its workload operation is built in the cloud and takes full advantage of the cloud computing model. Designer Cloud also enables you to rapidly ingest the data, transform, and deliver clean, actionable data across the entire enterprise, featuring a lead-edge interface, powerful machine intelligence, and advanced distributed processing. We'll see this in details and on how it works. And most importantly, renders the time-consuming complex and error-prone process of preparing datasets of any volume into, and this is very important, point and click exercise, as we're going to see in the demonstration. This last point, the point and click exercise and the time consuming, introduce us to the answer to why use the Alteryx Design Cloud. So why use? So first, estimates vary, but something like 60% of analysts' time is consumed with preparing data for use, leaving only 2 days per week to actually analyze the data, which is expensive and inefficient. Some organizations have pushed these cleansing efforts to IT, which may take weeks to come up with the custom scripted solution that requires inevitable back and forth between coder and the analyst. As formats, feeds, and requirements change, these rigid solutions require frequently updating as well. So which cannot be done by the people who really know the data. So instead of producing insights, analysts are filling requests and waiting weeks for the solution. And finally, data preparation has been a constant challenge for decades, and that challenge has only amplified as data volumes have exploded. So this is going to be one solution for Alteryx Designer Cloud, which delivers the tools to wrangle data to the people who understand the meaning of the data. So with it, analysts have the means to apply their expertise to the preparation of data in a way that is faster and more productive, which this means that now what used to take 6 weeks now can be done in less than 2 hours at the analyst's desks. And basically, Alteryx Cloud will help you cut time to prepare actionable data. It's going to avoid IT bottlenecks and reliance on data science in data prep. Deliver tools to prepare to the people who understand the data, and it's going to eliminate manual prep work. So let's see. So we have seen what it is and why to use it. And so let's see now, how does it work? So first, let's see the quick overview of the process. So first, we have connect. So we're going to create connections to sources of data. Some connections, such as the desktop upload, are automatically created for you. Then after creating the connection, we're gonna create references to specific data sets, so connecting to files and the tables. Then load the samples of data into the user interface. Then we're going to build sequences of steps to transform the sample data through innovative user interface controls, which we're going to see in the demonstration. And then we create a job. So we're going to execute a job to perform that sequence of steps across the entire data set, yielding an output data set delivered to the preferred destination in the proper format. And then after that, flows and plans can be shared between users, scheduled for automated execution, and exported and imported into the platform. So now let's move one step further into this process to understand it in details. So first, starts with the users after completing their registration and verifying their email. So they'll log into the Alteryx Designer Cloud through their preferred browser. First step. Then, within Alteryx Designer Cloud user interface, the primary object to create is going to be the recipe. The recipe is a sequence of transformation steps that you create to transform your source dataset. When you select suggestion, you can choose options from the toolbar or select values from the data histogram. You begin building new steps in your recipe using the predictive transformation, which we're going to see more about it in the next slide. So after selecting, you can modify the steps through the transform builder, which is a context panel where you configure the transformations can be modified and the changes previewed before saving them. So when you finish your recipe, you run a job to generate the results. So the recipe is going to be the main core we're going to see in the demonstration. So just keep in mind that this is the predictive transformation, which we're going to see more about it in the next slide. So next, a job. So the job executes your set of recipe steps on the data source without modifying the source for delivery to a specific output, which defines the location, format, compression, and other settings. As said, and important to emphasize, the Alteryx Designer Cloud does not modify source data at all. All data is brought into the system through a reference to the data source. So data sets, recipes, and outputs can be grouped together into objects called flows. So then what we call a flow is a unit of organization in the platform that can be shared between users, scheduled for automated execution, and exported and imported into the platform. In this manner, you can build and test your recipes, chain together sets of data sets and recipes in a flow. You can share your work with others and operationalize your production data sets for automated execution. Next, we create the plans. So a plan enables you to execute a sequence of discrete tasks in Alteryx. So these tasks can be flow jobs chained together, HTTP requests to other platforms, and notifications. The sequence of tasks can be gated based on success or failure criteria and can be restarted if needed when the plan failed, for example. And then finally, to close the cycle, flows and plans can be shared between users, scheduled for automated execution, and exported and imported into the platform. This whole process is done in the user interface and uses samples for that. So as you can see here. So for larger data sets, loading all rows can quickly overwhelm the desktop system through which they are being viewed. It is a problem with big data. So even if the local environment can handle the data volume, performing transformations become a cumbersome experience. So for systems that do not support data sampling, the local desktop efficiently becomes the limiting factor. So Alteryx then overcomes these limitations by sampling from data sets. So when a data set is loaded for use for the first time, a sample of the first set of rows is immediately taken. At any time, you can collect a new sample using one of the several statistically useful sampling techniques. For example, we have the random, filtered, anomaly-based, and stratified sampling. These are just some of the techniques available for use, and samples are maintained and can be selected for use again at the next time. So we sample in the user interface, and then when it's time to execute a job, the platform distributes the workload to the nodes of the cluster's running environment, and the results are turned to Designer Cloud for final assembly and export. So what we call about this, I want to say about the running environment. So for sampling and small to medium scale jobs, Designer Cloud includes the Trifecta Phantom environment, which is an in-memory running environment, and also for large scale jobs. So when we push our data to run through all the data sets, Designer Cloud integrates with the other running environments such as Spark. The transformation work is distributed across all nodes available to the integrated cluster. So this is something that user is going to see only this side, the user interface and sample, and then we will handle to Alteryx Cloud all the hard work, all the storage and all the tables and all the performance to execute the engine, no matter what size of your data set is. Okay, so to end these presentations and go start with the demonstration. So final topic before these demonstrations, I'm going to talk about the predictive transformation. So it is the linchpin of the platform, and it is a registered trademark of Alteryx Designer Cloud. Refers to a set of design and interface principles that serve as the foundation for how data prep by Alteryx Designer Cloud users interact with their data. So how it works. So based on user selection, predictive transformation guides you toward possible next steps, yet allows you to decide which step to take, and if necessary, refine the step definition. So whenever the step to take is selected or subsequently modified, the anticipated result of that step are displayed as a preview overlay on the top of the data. So this is going to be very clear once you get in the solution and see the demonstration. So let's go to the demonstration. So let's just talking about the scenario that I'm going to explain to you. I'm going to use the United States Census text data set, which can be found in this URL. So this data source is a raw TXT files, but they were uploaded in the SQL Server. So imagine that I have my IT team that just downloaded the raw data set, but they don't want to do any data transformation. So they just uploaded the raw TXT file with the source name into my SQL Server that I have access. So of course, the data set needs preparation before the analysis. We have a preparation target. So we have some data that was prepared from previous years, and the team has a file reference to follow. So you want to start with a raw table, and we want to get into a target table. So also we need a mapping table for item descriptions. So it is an XLS file uploaded. We have a job. So as I mentioned before, we're going to configure the output for this job. Then I'm going to show you how we share and schedule, how do we create the flows, the plans, and schedules. Okay, so about govern, and this is the end. So I'm going to show you how we create roles, how can we grant access to everyone into the Alteryx Cloud, and so on. So this is the final demonstration. So let's begin. So let me just quick refresh here. So as you can see, I've logged into the Designer Cloud. So just have to create a login, and I'm here. So just an overview of each session. So I'm in the home page. So we get the get started and welcome page. We have some resources in here where we can view the documentation, training, and certifications. We can see some recently updated flows, and some recent runs that I have as well. So the ones that I failed, the ones that are completed, and so on. So moving forward, I'm going to skip these first two, the flows and plans, because I'm going to get very into deep on that, and I'm going to skip it to library. So in library, as you can see, I have all the data that I have uploaded here in Alteryx. So uploaded, for example, TXT files, some Excel files, some XLS files that we're going to use. And also I have also referenced some United States Census tax raw data set here that is from SQL Server. So here I can, for example, preview the data set. So this is the one that we're going to be working on in this demonstration. So as you can see, I've uploaded from the TXT file the data sets. And as you can see, the states are all in the horizontal. So we will need to fix that. So this is the goal. And also I have some references. So imagine that references is pretty much like a staging folder where all the results that I've created in flows, I can store it here so everyone else can use some staging step from my flow. And also I have some macros. So for example, I'll have a black box where I'm just gonna call the function and, for example, get the z-score based on the column or get the outliers from the mean standard deviation and just flag them as 1 and 0 to define which ones are outliers or not. Okay, so getting again from all data, I'm going to show you something very important. So when I import data, and as you can see, I think this solves one questions that I have here in the question and answers. So which data sources I can bring into Cloud Trifecta in Alteryx Designer. So here I have the ones that I already configured. So as you can see, I have the SQL Server, SharePoint, and Snowflake, but also I can create a new one. So there's a huge amount of connections and applications where I can bring and connect data. And we have on-prem data sources as well as cloud data sources. So I'm gonna just move a little bit slow here so you can see which kind of information I can connect to. So for example, we have Google Analytics and also some databases from MySQL, Postgres, Snowflake, Oracle, MongoDB, and MongoDB Atlas. So as you can see, on-premises data sources or cloud data sources. So, and many more. So also I have ones that it's not still yet available, but once you can click on I'm interested, then once it is ready, I'm going to be notified that the connector is ready for connection. Okay, so what else? So after the library, we can see the connections. So as you can see, the ones that I've showed you before, the ones that I have already configured, I can see the ones that are shared with me. So I can share connections to other users. I can make them public, or if the security is something that we need to take care of, I can share just to some specific users. So for example, I can share the credentials or not, or can make it public, or only the ones that are invited. Okay. So moving on. So then the section job history, I'll see just how the jobs performed. So as you can see, I have the completed ones. We will see the failed ones here as well. We have the sample jobs. So this is important to know that I have developed and which method of sampling the data I used. So for example, in this case was random, stratified, and all the random here. And then the plan rows, so runs. So these are the ones that I have scheduled here, and we can see the performance right here. So the session job history is just to see how everything went in here. And then schedules. So as you can see, I only have one plan scheduled, and it's weekly, is 12 p.m. every Monday. And also I can disable it or delete. Okay, so this is the sections for the user interface. And now I can go click to my name. And since I am the administrator, I can govern the environment here at admin console. And I'm going to show you this later after the demonstration. So first, let's create some flows. So I'm back here to section flows. I'm going to show you how we transform data. So I'm going to create a new flow. and I have the data set, the recipe, and the output. So this is the basic step. I'm going to first connect to my data. And as I can see, I have it referenced here, the United States Census Tax raw from the SQL Server. I'm going to add it. So right now it's connecting to the SQL Server and getting just the sample. And next step is creating the recipe. So remember that I said it's an exercise of pointing and click. And this is where we're going to see all the predictive transformation in action. So first, I'm going to just rename it and call it recipe. And I'm going to get in and edit. Okay, so as you can see, we have the table here. We have the data quality. So we can see the histogram of all the values that we have some message of missing values. So as you can see, we have nulls here in the data set. We have the transform builder here on top, where we have all the actions we can perform on this data set. And also I have the initial data. So I'm going to click here just to show you that I can change the method of a sample. So I can choose random, filter based, anomaly based, stratified, and cluster based. So these are the ones that I need to start with and create my data transformation. Okay, so next, let's just get the target. So I have the raw data set in here, but I do need to follow a pattern, a layout schema that was shared with me. So I can do that by simply attach a new target. And in this case, I have uploaded here the reference table in an Excel format. So getting this layout and this schema. Now, as you can see, I have here on the top the layout I need to follow. So as you can see, the item is almost, it is done. Actually, I just have to move it to at the first row. So this is the first transformation that I'm going to do. So simply I'll right click it on it, and I'm going to move it to the beginning. And once I do this, I can see that this column now matches its sources, name, and type. So I'm good to go with the item. Next, I'm going to create the column called year. And as you can see, I can get the year from the file name. And this is where the predictive transformation is going to kick in. And we'll see the power and how this is going to help us a lot in data transformation. So to get the year, I'll simply get my mouse and highlight this piece in this cell. And as you can see, now I have some suggestions here on the right. So I have the recently used, so some regex transformations, and I have many more. And as you can see, based on machine intelligence, I can define the pattern. I could get it literally, so 2016, but also I can generalize everything. So this is a good suggestion. So as you can see, it's the first suggestion that that Alteryx is giving me. So I'm going to accept it. So I'll simply click and accept it. So I have this step now done in my recipe, and I have the column here ready for me with the data extracted. So next step, I'm just going to click again on the column, and in the suggestions, I'll see that I have one that is rename. So I'm just simply going to click on it, edit. Instead of file name, I'm going to call it year as in my target data set. I'm going to add this step. And now, since I already have the year column, I don't need the file name anymore. So I can just click and see what suggestion I get. And I can confirm that I can just delete the column. So I'm going to drop this column. I'm going to add this to the recipe. And again, I have my column matching its target name and type. So we're good to go. And as you can see in the recipes, now we have four steps. And anytime if I'm mistaken, I need to check something that was previously done, I can simply click on with right and go to select, and I'll see how it was in this step. I can also delete it or disable it. And I'm going to show you one good example why we would disable this one step. So let's go to the selected. So I have the item and the year. Next step is creating the column state. And as you can see, I have all the states here in the horizontal, and I need just to change it. So in this case, I'm going to select the action unpivot. So I can see the icon here that is doing exactly what I need. So I'm going to unpivot, and also be aware that United States is the total. So we will get rid of it, but with suggestions. But first, I'm going to create the column state. So first, I'm going to select the columns in a range to unpivot. So I want to unpivot from column US to column Wyoming. So I'm going to get all the states. And once I do this, I have the preview here in the bottom, and I can accept it. So I'm going to add this step, and that's it. So now I have the key, which I'm going to rename it with suggestion to state. I'm going to add this. And now let's get rid of the total. So the United States is not a state. So I'm going to just to delete this by highlighting the value and seeing which suggestion I can get. And in this case, I can see that the suggestion I want is basically, let's see, yes, so keep rows. So where it matches, actually this one is simpler. So where state is different from US. So selecting this, I can see that everything that is in green is going to be kept, in everything that is white, it's going to be removed. I'm going to accept this step. And now, as you can see, I have my data set. Next step is getting the text amount. So this value, so the only transformation that I need to do here is get rid of the nulls and actually replace the null to zeros. So I can just click on the column, see which suggestion I can get. And as you can see, the machine intelligence is going to set value if missing to 0. I'm going to accept this step. And now I just have to click again and rename the column to text amount. Okay. So I have 4 columns that are matched here. And the only one that is left now is the description. And the description is from my XLS file. So it's in another data set, and I need to bring here to do the transformation. So what I need to perform in here is the join operation. So by clicking in join, I can get the data set that I need. So it is this one, the text icon code and description. I'm going to select and see the preview. So in this data set, I don't have the mapping item code to the item description. So this is the one that I need to get all the descriptions. I'm going to accept this data set to bring it into the model. So now Alteryx is suggesting me, based on 100% match, that the item and the item code is a good form of key to blending both tables. I can select the join type, and also I can understand what is the join type operation. So in this case, if I choose inner, I'm going to return only the matching rows. If I choose right, so everything that is from the description, and left, everything that is from the original table. So in this case, I'm going to choose left, because imagine that if I have some item code that is not properly described, so could be missing, then I'm going to leave it on my data set and just have a blank description. So in this case, I'm going to keep the left, and I'm going to accept and configure. So based on the relationship, I can see that the item and the item code, so everything that is in green is coming from the right table, the one that I'm bringing, the new one, and everything that is in red is the current table, so the ones that I was transforming in the data set. In this case, since item and item code is the key, so as you can see, it's duplicated, then I can just uncheck this, and I want the description on the right, so I'm going to select it. So now I can see the preview, and I think it's good to go. I'm going to review it. and add to the recipe. So now I have all the columns that I need, and they match with my my target table, the one that I have from the year 2012, for example. And for example, what I'm going to show you is that I can bring the macros. So the macro was something that I got from the community. Basically, they created a function for me, and I'm going to use it. So I can simply call the macro. I'm going to insert a macro in here. And for example, what I want to do in here is see which values from the text amount are outliers. So I'm going to use the macro outliers. I'm going to use the column text amount, and I'm going to indicate a column cell line. I'm going to call it outliers. And as you can see, if I do this step, now I have the 1 and 0. So as you can see, now I can get only where outliers are 1. So, and as you can see, I can keep, for example, or I can delete everything that's not an outlier. So as you can see, we have here general sales and gross from California, Florida. They're having the tax amount, which is considered an outlier. So this is something just so we can understand it, but I'm not going to keep this one. I'm just going to go back to the recipe. And since it's like a new study, I'm going to just disable this step. And then we're good to go. I'm leaving this step in here just in case, but in this case, I'm ready. This is the steps that I needed, and I can click run, which I'm going to show you how we create the job. So everything is done with my data transformation. I'm going to go back to the flow. And as you can see, it's like scrambled here. Let me just get it nicer here. So as you can see, we have the data set from the SQL server. We have the recipe, and now we have the data set, which is an XLS file that is going to get in the recipe. Now I have the output. So I'm going to show you how can we run this recipe and get the results. So I'm going to do them manually. So first, I'm going to choose the environment. So let's add it first. So running environments, I could choose the trifecta font Phantom, the one that I for small and medium-sized jobs, and or for large and big data sets, I can use this Spark, and I have to configure it how I'm going to run this job. So other options, I can also save into the cloud the data set, the prepared data set as a CSV or other formats like Avro, JSON, or Hyper, and decide if I'm going to replace or create a new file every run, or I can push the data to other data sources. And as you can see here, if I click new, I only have from the list that previous list that was very huge. Now I only have the ones that I can publish. So these are the connections where I can push my data into. So I can save it to the SharePoint so everyone could get the transformations, or I can get to Amazon S3 and so on. Or I can push the traditional databases that I have. Okay, so this is how we create. So we're going just to update it and save the settings. I'm not going to run this now, but I just simply click run, and everything is going to be saved and processed on the cloud side, not on the sample side. So now what we have to do here is share. So imagine that I've created this workflow and I need to share with other users. So in this case, I can invite users that are viewer or editor, so people that can read and run, or people that can create, run, and also update and develop for me. So in this case, I have the emails. So for example, Fernando here, I can share with him this flow. And also I can create some schedules. So I've created this workflow, this flow, and I can decide now weekly when, which time zone and which frequency I'm going to run this job. So in this case, every Sunday, Monday, and so on, so forth. So this is how we schedule. And the next step is plans. So I've created plans and what we can do with plans. So plans is something that his brother. So remember from the presentation, I'll show you this one because it is ready and done. So in this case, I have a kickstart where it's going to start every Mondays at 12 p.m. So it's weekly, it's enabled. And what this plan does is simply getting and running two workflows. So I run the text report, and then I get one summarized. And on success, I send a message to Slack. And on failure, I'm also sending a message to Slack. And in this case, as you can see, I'm going to open my Slack here. Let me just check. Let me just log in first to show you. Yes, so I have many tests in here, but the one that I've run previously from this webinar, this is the kind of reports that I have received. Message I received from Trifecta. So text reports are updated. I could also create some other tasks. So for example, I'll create a new one from a new trigger, and also I can cancel, add a parallel node, and make some flow tasks. So run a flow or make any other HTTP request. So in this case, I can send a message to any other software or application that I have, like for example, Teams. I could use their API to send the message over there as well. Okay, so have seen flows and plans. And finally, we're going to see how we govern the environment. So again, I'm going to click here, just close the support, and we're going to see the admin console. So now I can see all the users that I have. In this case, as you can see, I'm pretty alone here in the environment. I only have Fernando, and Fernando has not logged in yet. And here is where we can enable and disable users. You'll see the ones that I have invited. I can manage the roles. So I'm going to create a role just to show you. So I can make a custom role where everyone's going to have the option to create flows, can be author, editor, or just a viewer. I could have the database creator, for example, so the ones that only create and view the databases, and the ones that can schedule or not the plans. So I can do all this sort of arrangements, like for example, flows and plans, or own connections, or everything. And so, for example, I've created here the workspace admin, so admin privileges, the chain workflow owner. So this only his only role in here is to chain flows. So in this case, he only can create the plans and so on. So here I can follow my plans and billing. I can see my usage when using Phantom or using Spark, and I can download the full report. And also I can grant access to up to clients. So I can register other applications to communicate with the cloud in here. And I think that's it. So pretty basic stuff. I think the core message about the Designer Cloud is the predictive transformation. So as you can see, everything that we've done, I know that is a simple data set that we have used, but this is kind of the next step for data preparation. So we're going to use the artificial intelligence to guide us and to help us performing some manual and repetitive tasks. So that's it. So I'm going to return here to the PowerPoint. Okay. And I'm going to see in the chat if we have some questions. Okay, so let me read the questions. So I'm trying to connect new success. Yes, so I don't know, the person who is anonymous, if you could send us an email, I can check that, because I think it depends on which cloud and where you're trying to connect. So actually, this answer is depends. Another question. What about if you have a simple table and you like to create a directive for the raw data? What about if you actually, yes, there is a question that is good to comment. What about if you don't have a simple table and would like to create it directly from the raw data? Is that a problem to do that or not? Well, I think that this, we have to go back to the cloud situation. So imagine that now you're not dealing with your own performance. So you don't have any hardware to take care of. And imagine that you need to use the raw data. And the raw data is like trillions and trillions of rows. So this could be a problem. Actually, this is a problem once we're talking in the cloud. And so yes, that would be a problem. And I think you won't even be granted to do that since it is in AWS. But I would say that the sample table would always be sufficient because we do have many statistical sampling methods. So this is something that we can always use, and it will always be better to do that because once you go to the cloud, this thing. So imagine that we are using in our desktop. So you have installed Alteryx and you're trying to bring trillions and trillions of data into your machine. So your machine is going to freeze as well. Your machine is going to reboot and you're going to lose all the processing. So imagine that you have a database and you need to perform that kind of operation as well. So you have an on-premise and you're going to send like trillions and trillions of left joining and you're doing the operations and you're going to knock down your server as well on premise. But if you're dealing with trillions and trillions of data and you're on cloud and you have done the development in the sample and you know that its sample is a good sample to work with, then once you're sending to the AWS and to Alteryx cloud, then it's going to, let me get the word, the exactly word that we're going to use, but you're going to have the platform distributing the workload to all nodes. So we don't have to understand how AWS does it or how Alteryx Cloud does it, but we are going to have all the computers that AWS has available to break your trillions and trillions of operations and perform the data very fast, and you'll be very less expensive because you're doing that on a very distributed workload. So that's it. So we're changing the style of how we develop things. That's it. So if there's any other questions, we can stop here. I hope everything was clear. I thank everyone for being here. Thank you everyone for attending this webinar, and any questions, please contact us by email, and I'll be glad to answer any questions. And if you have any other issues and questions concerning Alteryx Cloud, be happy to help. That, thank you again. Okay, there is another question. How does Alteryx Cloud Designer will interact with the classic Alteryx Designer? So Gustavo, thank you for the question. So basically, we need to see the architecture we're going to use, but it's going to connect easier. I would say that for now, it's not that easy to connect. But as you can see, we can work on different approaches and blending Alteryx Designer on-premise and Alteryx Designer on cloud. So as I explained it before, Alteryx Designer on cloud is for having statistical power for big data. So if you have Alteryx Designer on premise and you have Alteryx Server, for example, you know that we're using machine processing on premises. Like we have a limited amount of RAM, limited amount of disk, and once you're going to the cloud, we don't have that limitation anymore. You'll see the everything optimized. And the thing, how we connect both, is simply using the database connections. So Alteryx could prepare the things that you need for database injection, and the analyst could use it. And imagine that another team that needs to work with big data and cannot process it with this way in the designer, then you'll be able to use the Alteryx designer on cloud. So I think this is how it's going to work. But yeah, I'll think that the connection between both is not something that we see in the further future, because imagine that you're using Alteryx designer and sending the commands in there, and you have another way of doing so. We have another product. So yes, so I think it's a good question, and it's kind of tricky to answer right now. So I'll leave it as it is. So thank you, everyone, and see you next time in the next webinar.